you're not going to want to miss this championship. It's just, there's too much on the line. We've got first-year head coaches, Rian Wilkinson, Matt Potter, both first year in the league, made it to the championship. We've got someone like Christine Sinclair and AD Franch, players that have played in the very first NWSL Championship back in 2013. They were on opposing teams that year as well, and now they get to do it again. There's just a lot around this game that you want to get here for. Oh, and you can see us live before the game.
We're gonna be there. We're gonna be there too. But we're gonna be off the pitch, not on the pitch. But I love that though. I love that there's like these moments and areas of overlap, right? In terms of the history heading into this final. You're bringing up Sauerbrunn, bringing up Franch. I mean, my goodness. Talking about Kansas City. We said we were going to talk about this club when we came back from the break, but this is one of those two, right? Kansas City Current, a team that is just in its second year of existence as a franchise. They came through in 2021, went through that season as Kansas City NWSL. They didn't have perhaps maybe as big of a lead up into the introduction of NWSL as perhaps maybe these two California teams in San Diego Wave and Angel City FC. And because of that, they kind of had to navigate that first season with a lot of placeholders. Yeah. So they had temporary name, temporary crest. They had kind of obviously settled out on the colors, but you know what? It was, I think it's not going to be fair to talk about this Kansas City Current team in 2022 without maybe going back just a little bit and talking about that second half of the 2021 season for them. And it was an interesting time, right? They were in last place throughout the duration of that inaugural season, closed out in last place. Yeah. But this team started to look a little different, pick up a little bit of different results.
Do you remember what we called them?
Spoilers, right?
Yeah, and the wrecking ball.
They were the wrecking balls.
They
were out there. They were out there. Playing spoiler and wrecking up some dreams for the postseason for some teams out there. Quite frankly, and they made some midseason moves and talked about AD Franch a little bit already. And we're going to keep talking about her, quite frankly, because she's had what's really like an MVP caliber type of year for this club at the goalkeeper position for the Current. And I'm just, it's just really a unique situation, an opportunity that this team, I think, finds themselves in because they, despite playing spoiler, going on a little bit of a undefeated streak at home, right? They made that a very tough place to play. It was, they were playing their games at a minor league baseball facility at one point. And here they are in 2022 out in this incredible run for this team. And you can't help but take a look at some of the things that the franchise has been putting in place for this roster and try to connect the dots and say, hey, like they are clearly thriving, moving forward and beyond. They talking to some of these players today, even saying like, who anticipate, like it's always your goal to get to this game, but who can ever anticipate the storyline of going from like last to possibly lifting that trophy? And we could potentially see it on Saturday.
I know. That's the craziest thing to think about. And I love that we're reflecting on the end of 2021 because that's where this story really starts for Kansas City and all of the changes that they implemented. And even you look at this year throughout 2022, Kansas City owners built the very first female soccer facility in the country for these players and for Kansas City. And that opened right around the end of June where they were able to get in there and really utilize everything that it has to offer. What happened next? The team went on a 13 unbeaten streak. It just goes to show that the work you put in off the pitch and the dedication you have to these players and to clubs and everything that these players have and that they're fighting for is directly relates to how they do on the pitch. And even today, talking with Portland at media and all the different players, they're just so happy to be here. And they're so happy to be around their teammates all the time. And there's this air of sisterhood amongst all those players. And even asking head coach Matt Potter about it, and he was like, Oh yeah, they're a rowdy group. Like they get together, like they know, not rowdy in a bad way, but he was like they have each other's backs like day in and day out, and we wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case with this team. And it's just incredibly positive all around Kansas City at this point.
I got the opportunity at that media day to chat a little bit with Cassie Miller. So
Mhm.
back up to Adriana Franch has had to slot in at times during this season in Franch's place. And you know what? She was in a position last year with Chicago Red
Mhm.
Stars as the starting goalkeeper. Currently has the record, I believe, for most saves in a championship
Yeah.
final because of starting that final with the Red Stars in 2021 against the Spirit. But listening to her chat a little bit
Mhm.
too about this moment, echoing a lot of those similar sentiments, right? The whole concept of like really just taking it game by game in this postseason, having loose energy
Yeah.
leading up into this game. But it was cool to chat with her talking about representing Kansas City Current in this final, representing a Midwest team in
Mhm.
this final, going into this postseason, how there were so many Western
Yeah.
affiliated teams, right? OO Reign out of Seattle, Portland out of Portland, obviously, San Diego Wave, and Kansas City Current is the last of the non-Western teams, but representing a Midwest team. It's very, very exciting time. And I just sort of looking at and talking to all these different players, I think it's important to know that there is a lot of that commonality,
Mhm.
and the verbiage coming from all of them is echoing on the same points and similar threads. And so that's how you
Mhm.
sort of could tell that a team is like pretty united and on the
Yeah.
same page going into such a big game, quite frankly. But while we're talking about these two respective clubs going into this final, chatting a little bit about Portland and their depth a little bit. I think with in terms of X factors and things that we can maybe point to and grab out for Kansas City, maybe it's a little bit of that unexpected storyline, right? That little
Yeah.
Cinderella storyline that you're talking about. There's something
Yep.
about the energy around a team who are finding themselves with those storylines in this big, big moment.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of unpredictability when you're going up against the team with nothing to lose.
I agree completely. It's daunting, frankly, to be that team. But when you look at the road that Kansas City has taken most recently, right, throughout the playoffs, I think we learned a lot about them, right? We learned about Portland throughout their playoff run, but with Kansas City, they're a team that traveled to Houston and had to play against the Houston Dash. And they were able to finish that game in regulation at the very end of regulation play. And then this Kansas City side traveling to Seattle, going up against the Shield winners, getting a shutout. What was it? 37 defensive clearances for this team.
Madness.
Like insanity for
Madness.
this team. And I think getting 2 goals in that game, 37 clearances, like they can score. They scored 4 goals in 2 playoff games so far. So they're okay on the attacking end of things. Defensively, they've got AD in goal. They've got 37 clearances from the back line. There's just a lot of positives to look at when you look at this Kansas City side. And I talked about bookending for Portland, Sophia Smith and Bella Bigsby. I'm going down the spine
Oh
for
yeah.
Kansas City because starting at the front with Kristen Hamilton, this is a veteran that has led this team since day one this year, especially because she has been taking new players under her wing, whether it's Elise Bennett, the rookie who's slotted in up top, or it's Cece Kaiser getting traded in from Racing Louisville to this Kansas City side. It's been Hamilton that has led them. And it is Hamilton that needs to continue to do that throughout this championship because the high press starts from Hamilton and the nitty-gritty goals come from Hamilton and the assists. And there's just a lot that Kristen Hamilton needs to do in this game to continue to roll through that. I think we're going to see Alex Luera back in the sixth, the defensive midfield, perhaps alongside Desi Scott. It's a big Portland midfield that Kansas City has to match up against. And they did it against OL Reign, which maybe has a better midfield than Portland. I don't know. I mean, that's a type of argument there.
Yeah.
But
Opinions.
when you look at it,
Opinions.
I think Alex Luera is a huge piece for this
Oh
Kansas
yeah.
City side as well, going straight down the spine underneath Hamilton with what she's been able to do, the attacking presence that Luera has built on this team, the fact that playing alongside Desi Scott, it gives Luera the freedom to push higher up and be more of an attacking threat for this Kansas City side while also being a huge defensive stop. And then AD France. That's who it comes down to at the end of the spine. If she can have as big of a game, be as big of a leader as she was in that last OL Reign match, this team is going to be unstoppable heading into this final. But it's really hard to do back to back, to have a defensively sound team just 1 week ago and then have to go and do it again against a powerhouse of Portland Thorns. But it's those players, right? Hamilton, Luera, Franch, they're my heavy hitters in this game.
I'm with you 100%. Look, when we did our episode discussing end of the year awards and nominees, right? You asked me, you're like, who's missing from these finalists? And I was like, Alex Loera is missing from these finalists. You know, you have a category like something like Rookie of the Year, and it's limited to just 3 finalists, right? And it really speaks to the level of talent that we saw this year with a lot of first year players. But I had in a piece for CBSSports.com, like Loera and Elise Bennett were kind of like dark horse contenders a little bit for me in this Kansas City team. I mean, and enough can't be really said about them, the two of them, quite frankly, and their performances. Elise Bennett has definitely sort of been in this role, in an off the bench role for this team, especially during their second half of the regular season. But I thought it was so incredibly telling in that semifinal when all of a sudden they were presented with an in-game scenario where CC Kaiser had to come out for concussion protocol. And you saw that when Elise Bennett was checking in to sub in and came into this match, how absolutely locked in and ready she was to go. You didn't see a dip in Kansas City's form in terms of what they were able to present to OL Reign during this match. I mean, if she's someone who's going to come off the bench for this team, I think that that's a great opportunity for a rookie like her as well. But I'm with you. I think you have to maybe see somebody like Loera in that defensive midi role. Hopefully we'll get to see it. Maybe it'll be a nice fun matchup for us to sort of circle, like a Coffee and on one end and a Loera on the other. But I'm really looking at the formational things here. I think between these two teams and what Matt Potter for Kansas City and Wilkinson for Portland are going to present. It's going to be another one of those opportunities. We've been looking at certain coaching matchups throughout the postseason, and this is one of those that I know that we're both excited to see. These are 2 first-year coaches, and it definitely might be a little bit of a game. Perhaps this one's going to be like a game of chess versus a lot of the end-to-end type of stuff that we've seen during these semifinals. But I'm with you in terms of a player to look at, like you said, bookending in Hamilton, and I think you could maybe go with any of these players, quite frankly, especially when you're looking at those goal scorers, right? We're talking 22 goals from this Kansas City side, and it's pretty even. Like they're sharing the wealth. You've got Hamilton with 7, you've got Kaiser with 7, you've got Labonta with 8 goals. So the fact that there's this sort of very even yet also equally lethal type of attack for Kansas City, I think you were 100% correct in going with Bixby as a player to have a big match.
It's hard to defend against a team that has many threats up top, right? I mean, Portland has them too, right? But you're circling Sophia Smith. Like she's the one that you really have to keep your eye on. And I think with Kansas City, it becomes a bit more dangerous. And that's why talking positionally, like, will we see Rhian Wilkinson and Portland side go with 4 in the back? Because that way you can match up a little bit better. And then you have a midfielder drop back, or will it be a 3? And then you have the 4 dropping back centrally. Those are like the great positions that I'm like interested to look at and kind of see how these things unfold throughout. You mentioned the coaching battle between Potter and Wilkinson, and if it will be a bit of a chess match. I think the chess match is happening this week, right? Like in watching the film and looking back at how these two teams have played most recently in September, coming to a 1-1 draw. Kansas City has never beaten Portland. And I think that is a very interesting stat to look at coming into it, because we know what Kansas City is good at, right? They are really good in transition. They are really good at being comfortable without the ball. We've saw that throughout this postseason against Houston, against OL Reign. Kansas City did not have majority of the possession, yet they were still able to capitalize on moments. in opportunities where their opponents gave the ball up or had a sloppy pass, they jumped on it and they pushed it. So that's something that's very interesting because Portland likes to have the ball and likes to have possession. Will they try to lure Kansas City to sleep with that possession and with that build-up play? But they have to be careful because one wrong mistake and Kansas City is going to jam it down your throat and look to go fast and quick to goal.
I mean, we're looking at even just recency, right? Mm-hmm. Like, looking at that semifinal, how quickly they got that go-ahead goal against OL Reign. Hamilton just reading it the whole way and in the right place at the right time, right? And pulling, making the shot when she needed to make the shot.